April 2nd, first farmers market coming up in 4 days on Saturday the 6th. As you said here today, Tuesday, thinking of Saturday, what are the thoughts running through your head?
Um, I mean, at this point, it's the main thought is, let's just get as much stuff harvested without, obviously I don't want to harvest as much as I physically can, and then I don't have anything for the next few weeks, but sort of, yeah, like trying to dial in, like, how much can I afford to pick? Because I don't think I'll have a problem with selling, within reason. But, like, how much of that bed of carrots do I pull to sell bunches of baby carrots this week and then to kind of keep me going over the next couple of weeks as the smaller ones start to size up, things like that. Like, do I shoot for 100 bags of lettuce? Do I do 50 bags so that I can ensure that I have more for, the upcoming weeks until the second succession is ready to go? Um, I mean, that's really my main focus at this point. We've got all the stuff for kind of the market display and for the booth space, all of the kind of the back end stuff with Square and all that is ready to go. Um, that's more or less where we're at, is making sure that we pick what we need to sell as much as we can without, clearing us out for the next, 2, 3 weeks until the other stuff starts to come online.
Setup's the easy part, right? Like the booth, that type of stuff, the tech, because that's all known. And the hard part, I would guess, is how much do you bring? Is
Exactly.
you don't have cold storage, so like carrots, and they could hold, lettuce is not going to hold. If you pick it, it's basically gone. If you process it and wash pack it, it's that labor's gone. If you don't sell it, is there any sort of math experience you can lean on, or is it just a total crapshoot guess on this is what I think I can sell?
I mean, I've talked to a couple of the farmers that were at this market last year. Um, and so, they're throwing out numbers like $700, $800 a weekend that they can make, but I also know what prices that they're charging. And so, if you're charging $3 a pound for heirloom tomatoes, then yeah, like what is, and if that's like your main crop that you're selling, what does $700 at $3 a pound look like, as opposed to probably a more realistic price of like $5 a pound? There's a significant gain in sales there. So it's a little bit of doing that. But honestly, it's just a lot of like, all right, let's pick what we think we can sell. And I guess for these first couple of markets, I'd rather err on the side of longevity and like, all right, well, let's go like back to the carrot example. Like, let's be a little conservative with what we're picking so that I know that we can push it out for a couple more weeks, because those will be fine in the ground and they'll just get bigger. Um, and yeah, maybe this market we sell out super quick and it's like, all right, well, next week we really got to bump it up, or maybe um, maybe it is like, all right, for April, maybe it's going to start out a little slow, because the other thing is this market, for the last however many years they've been operating, they've started in May, so they're starting a month earlier this year. So, how much of the community, how much of the city is going to be like primed and ready to go on Saturday? Are they, is it going to be just like, is it going to be slow for these first 3 or 4 markets? Is it going to
Yeah,
be
like people
super
are like, oh,
busy?
is it open yet? Oh, we didn't even know you opened, type thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it really is just sort of a bit of a crapshoot, and just like, let's hope for the best.
How's the weather there now?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, it's been like sunny and dry and warm. I think today we hit like 80. So I mean, we're like, it's full blown spring. Everything's really popping. And I haven't checked the weather for Saturday, but I think it's supposed to be pretty good. Um, yeah, so I don't think weather will be a problem at all.
Not a deterrent. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the right answer. My gut, like if I had to do it, I'd go with less in risk selling out. It's that
Yeah.
whole Jeff Bezos. He talks a lot about this open door, closed door decision making. A closed door is you go through it. Once you go through it, that door closes. You ain't going back in. Open door is like you have the ability to walk back through. And you bring too much, that's a closed door. Like you don't sell it, it's gone. If you at least bring a little bit and you sell out, well, you gave up sales, but you didn't waste. And early on, I'd rather give up sales and minimize waste and ensure longevity. And always, I think it's also good maybe to have be sell it out, be like, hey, I'm sorry, we sold out already.
Hmm.
Come back next week. We'll bring more. Love to have you back. It tells you a little story. People are like, oh, they sold out. Like, what's going on? What did I miss? So I think it creates a bit of intrigue, and I think it sets you up dramatically different mentally. I mean, even if you brought $200 worth of stuff and like I sold $200, like we sold out, versus you bring $1,000 worth of stuff and you sell 500. Yeah, you sold 500, but you're like, I didn't sell $500 worth of stuff. Like, even though you sold more, I think the
Hmm.
negative mental weight of that unsold is potentially damaging. And I think that's the other hard part is like you're just getting in the game. It's a long season, it's a long career,
Yeah.
expectations, the mental side of it. I think it's really important.
Yeah. And and in the future, like we just talked about offline, hopefully starting May, start doing some like on-farm pickup, online orders and stuff like that. And so if I have, if I only sell half my inventory of salad mix, then I know it's like, all right, well, beginning of next week when orders go out, like those can hold for another couple more days in the cooler. They'll be okay. And then I can push those next week. And, but for right now, I don't have that at the moment. And I haven't really built up any wholesale customers. And frankly, you know, it, I'm not going to be doing much wholesale with the extra stuff from the market because it's like you can't go to a chef and be like, I've got like a couple of bags of lettuce and a handful of bunches of kale. It's like no, like they want to have like a pretty substantial order that they can actually like do something with in the restaurant. And so I think moving forward, having excess stock at the end of the market won't be as big of a problem. But since right now I've scaled everything back to where this is like the only sales funnel for this month, yeah, I think kind of being a little more conservative will probably be better in the long run.
Yeah, that's where that redundancy in market streams comes in. Or if I don't sell it, in my online store, I can take it to the farmer's market. If I don't sell it at the farmer's market, people can come pick it up on farm. I wonder if that's an opportunity to draw people off the farmer's market to the farm. If you sell out, say you sold out at, I don't know, the market's open till 1 and you sell it
Yeah,
at 11, it's like, hey, we're sold out, but Tuesday, come by the farm, pick it up, give me your number. I'll text you what we have available. And maybe then it starts to get people in that habit of coming there, doing that. At least it opens up because that's one thing you will have to respond to, right? If you do sell out, you don't just want to be like, sold out, sorry. It's sold out, sorry, but dot dot dot, here's how we can help you in the future because you got somebody who actually stopped and was interested. I think the worst thing you can do is be like, sorry, see ya. It's how
yeah.
can capture that unique moment and say, yes, we're sold out, but here's how we can help you next time and exactly what you need to do.
Yeah. So even when so what my plan is I'll have a clipboard with like a really nice printed out like sort of sign up sheet for our email list, and that's the main focus of that will be like here's what's coming up, here's what's in season right now, here's a link to the online store. And so the plan is if I sell out, and even if I'm not selling out, I still have stuff. It's like I will be selling even if I have nothing to sell because I'm selling the online store. I'm selling come out to the farm. And so, yeah, I've sort of been trying to visualize what that'll look like if I have an empty table. I'm still have all of my kind of promotional stuff around me and all that. And it's like, all right, well, then the last 2 hours of the market, if we sell it by 11, is you're just trying to get as many people to sign up for the email list as possible So yeah, like sell even when you have nothing to sell. Just sell the farm.
Yeah, one thing we talked about in Ready Farmer One, that's my book available on Amazon. Shameless plug. You, it's we. I'm thinking we sold out this week. Next week, you guarantee you want some, you know, pre-order it. Like
Yeah.
do a pre-sale. Like, hey, hey, we have the ability to text me ahead of time, email me ahead
Mhm.
of time. Here's what you want. I'll have your order already set aside, bagged up. You're guaranteed it's ready, whether you get there, when the gun goes off at 8 a.m. or you get there at 11:30, we'll have it ready to go. So it's one of those, turning lemons into lemonade moments that people have to deal with in a business. And I think these situations are great learning experiences. Just from that standpoint, obviously for a business, it's super critical to get sales, like cash flow in, super important. But it doesn't do you any good if everybody who comes this week doesn't come next week. Like cash flow one week and none next week doesn't help.
Yeah.
So beyond, if you look at the gains that come from a farmer's market, and this is the advantage of a farmer's market, there's many. Obviously, you can sell your product, you can get business, but are you trying to like using this the opportunity to start building relationships with the customers, like really putting an effort into, all right, people stop, I gotta not just transact with them, but I gotta get to know them a little bit, I gotta tell my story, I gotta learn, like, I can ask these people questions, right? They're buying something. Hey, where do you usually get stuff? What else would you like? That type
Yeah.
of thing. But it's a huge opportunity for you to get all this information that was just guesswork before.
Exactly. Yeah. And know what, yeah, because maybe there's a, like I'm gonna have like a handful of kohlrabi that it was just like I hadn't sold it and it's just chilling in the cooler. And I don't think that that's gonna be like a big sales driver, but it could be one of those things that it's like, oh, actually, we really like this. And so it's like, all right, so maybe I do need to do a bet of that as opposed to it's like, I thought that like no one's gonna know what the heck this is, or any other crop like that. And so, or it can be one of those things like, man, people really don't know what this is. So it was good to trust my instincts and not have to sit here and like sell, bunches and bunches of this thing that nobody knows what it is. And so, yeah, it's just going to be a really great opportunity to kind of test my instincts of what I think the market wants. And then also pivot if I find thing, yeah, like maybe nobody has one, like there's one particular thing that even I haven't brought that no one else, none of the other 10 or so people that'll be there will have. Um, and yeah, and then it's like, all right, well, we're still early on. We've got space. Let's go ahead and if we don't have the seed, let's get it and get it in the ground ASAP. So maybe come, end of May, beginning of June, we're ready to rock and roll. And those people are like, oh, you listened, you got it, thank you. And then it kind of feels like it's like not just, oh, look, they have something I like, but it's like, oh no, they kind of in a way like they grew that for me. And like, man, if people can feel like I grew something specifically for them, even if they're one of 100 people that feel that way, it's like that's 100 people that have this real tangible relationship. And they might be more apt to then buy my bunch of carrots versus the other guy three tenths down.
No, absolutely. You might get the subtle hint drops of, oh, do you guys have okra yet or something like that's totally
Yeah.
out of season. You're like, all right, now people are asking about that. Like, I got to know. I think the other thing that you hit on there was really true. If you put the kohlrabi out and people do the look at it and don't move towards it or anything, right, like, hey, they don't care or they don't know. You
Yeah.
can get a good sense of if people are asking questions about pricing or whatever, you can learn a lot about your signage.
Hmm.
If you keep getting the same question one, two, three, four, five times, it's like, all right, I got to do something to address this. It's not clear. You can probably play around a lot with the first couple of weeks with just setup to get a sense of, how are people interacting with the booth, what works, what doesn't, because that's the other thing. You might think, oh, I'm going to stand in front of the booth, we're going to have it set up this way, this is the best for flow, and then you do it the first time and you're like, oh, this is a disaster, there's too many people, right,
Yeah.
it's getting backed up. So there's just so much, I think, any business in the first few weeks can learn. It's just having your eyes open and paying attention for all these subtle things and not just getting lost in the moment.
Hmm. Yeah.
Do you have a idea yet of the pitch? You know, somebody says, "Hey, you know, I think we talked about in one of the other episodes. You said you're working on like the elevator pitch. If somebody's like, "Hey, crop culture farm, real food for real people," what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it a lot. I haven't like written something down. I probably should have. Just been like zeroed in on like production this past week. But I mean, yeah, more or less just saying I'd probably start out with like the main thing. And I actually think I'm gonna write this on one of our little boards. Just say like no pesticides, no herbicides, no bull, dot 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 dot.
Right.
And just kind of come right out of the gate. Because I think most people, because I don't have a nice thing that says like certified organic and I'm not certified naturally grown. And it's like, so it'll be like, yeah, we're crop culture farm. We don't spray anything. We focus on, like, I probably won't go to no-till first because most people could really care less, honestly. Just be like, or maybe even say like we're transitioning toward organic or we're getting our certification, and then just sort of talk about like, yeah, we just want to grow like good food for for you to enjoy with your family, not necessarily to, yeah, I'm sort of ideating. I need to write it down. You're right.
Right.
That's going to
'Cause
be
you can get
goal
lost.
number. Yeah, needs to be goal number one. Once we're done recording, it's like, all right, you need to write down the pitch, so that you're not doing exactly what I'm doing and just fumbling over your words while you've got four people in your booth.
I learned this in permaculture. People get lost in the jargon. And
Yeah,
just recently, I was reading something and it was talking about how a lot of effective storytellers now, and people like Mr. Beast, right, who've obviously spent massive amount of effort into getting their message across, or even if it's just entertainment, but they're writing stuff at a fifth grade level,
mm,
which kind of blew my mind because you'd think people would be smarter than that, and it's not. And you start using words like anything industry specific to non-industry
yeah,
people. It's like get rid of that, like no till, that type of thing. But even you think of like we're functionally organic. Like somebody's gonna maybe think, what does functionally mean?
yeah.
That type of thing. It's just like we use organic practices. Like what is the simplest,
Hmm.
cleanest, least words, like most dumbed down that a fifth grader could understand it and make sense. I mean, if I just walked up to your booth now and I was like, "Hey, Crop Culture Farm, I've never seen you guys before. What do you do?"
Yeah. I mean, we grow fruits and vegetables, and yeah, now you're putting me on the spot. So my brain's like running a million miles a minute trying to like find the words. But yeah, no, I need to have it written down and put it to memory so I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Right, right. Yeah, I wonder what that. I'm just thinking of like what I would say in something like that. It's yeah, I mean we grow clean vegetables
Mm,
for our family to share with families like yours.
yeah, ooh,
So
that's
they,
good.
like
You make a note of that one.
what's your, what's the audience? Because it's the other thing is about like a lot of storytelling. Luke Gross talked about this when we did Grass Fed Life and a lot of things is I forget who wrote it, but he was talking about somebody he followed who did this. And a lot of people put their story first. And the moral of the story of that was the guy would basically say, like, nobody gives a shit about your story for the most part. They care
Yeah,
about their story, right?
yeah,
Like your story has to fit into their story. If your story doesn't resonate with how they see the world, who cares? Like I don't care. I'm not just here to hear your story. So it's I do this to help you provide blank for your blank or to save blank or to be healthier or what like we grow crops without chemicals so you can be healthy and so you can feed clean food to your kids, like that type of thing, and like really putting them forward. um, but it's hard because we all want to talk about what we do and because we love what we do and we're
yeah,
passionate about it, but we forget. that sometimes that comes out like a fire hose to the person listening, and they're not ready to receive it all.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just like, man, like I want to buy these bunch of carrots and just
You
leave
know,
me alone.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. And this guy's telling me his life story.
Yeah. Oh, I've been accused of that before.
Right, exactly, right. Like the chatty Cathy you get on both sides, customers who tell you their life story,
Yeah.
and the person behind the booth is like, "Oh, I got into this in 1945,
Mhm.
and then in 1951 I did this."
Yeah.
Pricing all set at this point? Like you're locked down on how you want to price stuff? That's all straight?
Yeah, I think so. I had a conversation with Nicholas today about, yeah, about the baby carrots. It's like, listen, like, they're not full-size carrots yet. And I like took a picture of the one bunch that I made, and I'm like, this is it's like 7 ounces for a bunch. That would put me, if I sold them for like $4. That puts me somewhere in the neighborhood of like 11, $12 a pound when it's all said and done. Like that feels good to me, but am I crazy? Because I see the big bunches that you sell for like $5, and he's like, oh no, like you definitely. He's like, I would, yeah, like $4 or $5, and you're good. And so, I'm coming in from that angle of like, I don't want to overcharge and miss the opportunity. But he put it in a really great perspective. He's like, well, then just bring less. Like if you have 10 bunches, he's like, you only need 10 people to agree to $4 for a bunch. And and so it's like, oh yeah, that's a really easy kind of small win. And then if it's like, man, we sold out in no time, then it's like, okay, so that's either a good price or maybe it's a little low. Um, and uh, yeah, and so but I think with everything else, I've been selling it. I think carrots will be the only new thing that I'm selling. Um, and so everything else I'm pretty locked in. Kind of fall into this like $4 a bunch and $6 a bag for the bag stuff. Whether it's just because it's like a higher end product, like a salad mix, or it's or it's just bulkier, like charging $6 for a 3/4 pound bag of like a kale or a braising mix, things like that. So I think it seems to be good. So I'm not throwing out like I don't have you don't look at the booth and there's like 10 different prices. Like everything kind of falls into it's like it's either $4 or it's $6. And then with the potential, I don't know if I want to do the whole 1 for 4, 3 for 10 sort of thing, because I think I'm just throwing too many variables into it. And it's like, well, did it work because it was $4 or did it work because I sold 3 of them for 10? And so trying to like find some middle ground of like, here's a good price. $4 doesn't sound outrageous. Maybe I can adjust bunch sizes to meet that, whether it's like, yeah, maybe you need to make them a tad bit bigger. You need to make them a little bit smaller. But I think now everything's pretty much locked in on price for now.
You can probably gauge behavior after a few weeks too. If you notice people are buying two because they want to pay with like a 10. I mean, if
Yeah,
people even use cash anymore. Um, but it's like, how can you get them to buy that third bunch, right? And get that
yeah.
extra $2? Could you do it? But I think erring simpler is better. Because
Especially
over,
at first.
yeah, I mean, I've learned that with ecom. If you overwhelm customers with options, people just stop in their tracks and they don't buy. It's like, how can you simplify it down and make it as frictionless as possible? So, sure, they can ask questions, but most people won't. They just won't buy.
Yeah,
And make it just like, I see what you have. I understand what you're offering. I can easily assess the value and then decide if it's right for me. But like you said, if there's 10 different prices and all these bag sizes and even like too many products, it's just like, I don't know where to start. I'm trying to add it up in my head. It's really hard where it's like 4, 4 or 4, 6. That's 10, 4, 6. Now I'm at 20, 4, 6. Now I'm at 30.
hmm
The other thing I think is super valuable that you mentioned is talking to somebody like Nicholas, like having somebody in your life that's been there and done it, that can be a voice of reason to calm your worry,
Yeah.
frustration, insanity, and just be like, look, here's how it is.
Hmm.
Do it this way. That mentor voice, I think, is huge for new people. So finding that person is probably invaluable, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, how many times have we talked about how valuable that's been, and I'll probably never stop talking about it because I mean, yeah, it's completely invaluable, and it doesn't require like shooting an email or scheduling like a Zoom call. It's literally like we were both picking bunches of arugula, and they're like, "Here's my opportunity. Hey, here's what I'm thinking on the carrots. This is my price. What do you think?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good." And so it's like even the benefit of it just being like an as I go sort of thing, and it doesn't have to be some sort of formal question asking, or even like on a forum. Um, like No Till Growers has a great forum, and I ask questions and talk to people there too. But it's like, but then you get like 500 different answers, and some people are like, "Oh, that's too small. Oh, that's too big. Oh, I would never do a size that big." And then all it does is, if anything, it's just sort of like making your anxiety and lack of confidence even more so, as opposed to like someone who's been doing it for 30 years and it's like, "Oh yeah, no, do it this way and you'll be good." It's like, okay, yeah, peace of mind, check, we're good, let's go.
Yeah, I've talked to people with products we've looked at, just more generic things in the past, be like, there's no way that works. And then I talk to somebody selling it, and it's like mind blown because they've sold a ton. They've sold it way more than I would have ever sold it for. Their
Hmm.
business is huge. And I'm just like, I was so far off there. You just sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And you don't, it's the danger and the shortcoming of inexperience is that ignorance. You don't have anything to compare against. I mean, so you can either be overly optimistic, like, oh, I'm going to crush it. Like, people buy it for whatever I put a price on it. You can be way too hard on yourself, of like, I'm scared to sell. I'll just list this for like barely anything. So then people have to buy it because it's so cheap. And then you shortchange yourself there. And there's all these loops you can go in.
Yeah.
I love his advice of, look, if it's $4 and you only bring 10, you need 10 people to agree at 4. So then you look, what's all the information I can gain off of that?
Hmm.
Do more than 10 people ask? All right, I didn't bring enough.
Yeah.
Are people complaining about 4 and walking away? All right, maybe it's too much. If people are just buying 4 all day, well, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe I need to be at 5, or I
Yeah.
can reduce the bunch size, that type of thing. I think that's the takeaway from me on all this, and thinking about it and hearing you talk about it, is you you have to get as much data as you can possibly take in when you know nothing, to set yourself up for the best chance of success going forward. And that's really no different than the field, right? You plant a crop of carrots, it doesn't come up right or it doesn't germinate. It's, what did I do wrong? What can I
Yeah.
change next time? And it's the same thing here for the market.
Let me ask you a question? Because this is something I've been thinking about and I don't have a good answer, and I don't want to be caught with my pants down when the question gets asked, or the comment gets made like, "Your stuff's too expensive." I haven't come up with a good reply to that, because I don't want to just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," because one, that could come out like condescending, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're too poor to buy my stuff," but I also don't want to be um like too weak and just bend over and be like, "Oh, well, let me do it for this," and whatever, in the fear of losing a sale. And so like I'm curious what your thought would be on the best way to answer or to respond to that criticism of like, "Your stuff's too expensive."
Yeah, we actually have to answer this question a fair bit, or we get something similar. People be like, "Oh, when's your next sale, or do you have any coupon codes?" And I mean, our short answer to that is no.
Yeah.
We try and offer the best price we can all the time. So I think it would be it's an educational moment, and it's you're trying to empathize. It's hey, I understand where you're coming from, but we try and produce the best possible quality vegetables that we can, and this is the price that we have to charge for them so we can stay in business in this market. Like something along those lines. It's like, I heard you. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's the reason why we have to do it. And it's like, that's it. I wouldn't say like we can judge it. I wouldn't say sorry. I think you're right there. Like, hey, I'm not going to say sorry. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'll lower this down for you. It's just, we have to, if we're going to provide this quality, we think we grow the best crops in the valley. In order to do that, we have to charge this price. We try and offer you the best price we possibly can, and that's what this price is. But this is where we need to be. And I think people understand that if you're because it's honest, it's not like a bullshittery story.
Hmm.
And people get it. Like they see gas prices, they see prices for in the grocery stores going up. And if it's hard, I think, to tell any business owner, I mean, there's probably El Cheapo lady out there who would have no problem telling you it's too expensive, but
But she's probably not going to buy anyways.
exactly. But it's like, we hear you. It's good. This is the best we can do.
Yeah.
But then maybe then it's like, look, if you that's where if you did go bundle or something like that, or you had like a subscription or on-farm pickup, it's like, you know, but here are other ways you can save. You can get
Hmm.
3 for 10,
Yeah.
right? Instead of one bundle, you can subscribe to and get booth credits and save 10% on every purchase. So then it's like, all right, we'll give you an alternate way to save that gets you to kind of buy in more.
Yeah. It's like encourage more of a buy-in before you just start knocking down and frankly devaluing what you have. Because yeah, I think there's always this fear of like, I my price is too high and I'm going to have to come down, or people don't think that it's worth it as much as I know that I have to charge in order to turn a profit. And so, but the last thing you want to do is start like devaluing what you have, because if like like the buck has to stop with me on the value of the stuff. Like if I don't think that this bunch is worth $4, $4 for a bunch of this. And so and and maybe this is a little too meta, but it's like I feel, even like the way that I respond, like if I can convey that I feel like it's worth 4, then maybe that sort of energy will be accepted and like, oh, okay, no, I definitely get it. As opposed to if you're like sheepish about it and kind of backtracking and coming up with all these excuses, it's like, yeah, you're just showing that it's really not as valuable as it actually is.
100% agree. I think the tone of it is that you don't want to be an a-hole, but it's just like, we grow the best we can. This is what we have to sell it for. And it's
Yeah.
like with confidence and like 10 toes on the ground, bass in the voice. Here's what it is. That type of thing. And I mean, knock on wood, I hope you do great at the market, but like if you look at the negative scenarios, right? Like sales are low, much lower than expected. So I think there's a lot of things then you got to look at from there, because the first thing could be, well, is price too high? Because I think that's we might have touched on this in a previous episode of like, well, is the price actually too high? It's like, well, how many people stopped at the booth?
Hmm.
How many people who stopped bought versus didn't buy? Because that'll give you like, I look at that the same thing with a website. It's like what percentage of visitors that come buy something versus, they thought it was something and they just clicked on the wrong thing. And then it's like, well, did they ask questions? Did you get the sense that it was too high? Are people making comments? But it just dialing the price down, like if you're not getting enough booth traffic, doesn't solve the problem. And it's like, are you getting so much booth traffic and then people are walking out? And then it's maybe it is the kohlrabi problem where it's like,
Yeah.
well, they came in, but they didn't want the kohlrabi, or they loved the carrots and you were out of carrots. And,
Yeah.
and the kohlrabi could have been free, but they're never taking it. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be an objection you hear. And somebody said it on a podcast, like you want to have some people saying like, this is too much. And I would agree with that. Like you definitely want some people squawking about price. If it's too frictionless, it's too low.
Yeah.
Like they need to think about it a little bit. Like, yeah, okay. Versus like, give me it right now.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, this is the deal of the century. Let me
Yeah.
buy, let me buy. And it's like I'm sold out by 10 o'clock. And I'm like, oh dang.
What did I do? Yeah. Like
Yeah.
either something was really good or my pricing was really off
Hmm.
on it. What are the crops you're leading with at the market? So what's the first week here?
Uh, Salad mix, kale, and I'll have three different varieties. I'll have like a dinosaur kale, lacinato kale, red Russian, and then like a regular curly, like a winter boar kale, collard greens, green garlic, broccolini. My God, yeah, I've been like picking for the last week and just storing it up so I can have just because my second planting hasn't quite, I didn't time it right, so it's not online yet. So I'm just like trying to like squirrel as much away as I can to have it for the market. Um, and then what else am I gonna have? My brain is totally lost on me right now. I'll have some watermelon radish and some and then some like full size turnips, just like kind of by weight, like no tops, just big turnips. And I think that's what we'll have.
About 10 crops. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then like scallions, green onions, I'll have that too. And then some herbs. Yeah, now I'm remembering like rosemary and just stuff that's sort of perennial, and I can just kind of pick it and take it and just see how that sort of stuff does.
Do you know if any of this is going to be unique to you at the market? This stuff?
Um, I don't because we had like a meet and greet. It's kind of mixer with a lot of the folks, and most of the people who were going to be there on Saturday were not there. Like I think there was only three farmers there out of it's out of the 10, not including the meat and the eggs and the honey people. Yeah, I think there's going to be 10 of us, and there's only three of us. And out of those three, I know for a fact that I'll have you know pretty much the probably not the kale, but maybe like the collards and the salad mix and the carrots and definitely green garlic. I don't think anybody will have that. And some of the radishes, I don't think anybody else will have it. Um, but we'll see. I don't know. I think most of the other folks are um kind of more like home gardeners that are maybe just kind of selling their excess. I don't know for sure. I'm literally just going off of a list of like, oh, they have farm in their name. So, it could be like they make soap, but they're marketing themselves as a farm. So I don't really know, but I definitely know like bagged salad. I don't think anybody's going to have that. And, and then probably the baby carrots. No one will have that. And then thinking about doing like a braising mix, kind of throwing the baby collards and some of the smaller kale together to just make another option that's more or less the same of what else is on the table, but it's in a form factor that people can just take it. It kind of mimics what's at the grocery store. Just take it from the bag, throw it in the pot, and it's good to go. And frankly, the profit margin on that is way better than just a bunch of kale, anyways. So, yeah, I think the baby root stuff and the bagged stuff will definitely be, I think, where I'm gonna kind of corner the market.
What's the volume of things that you want to bring? If you're going to do salad mix, like how many bags and how many bunches of kale? And I mean, I'm sure they're all different for every crops, but is it 25 of each? Is it 100 of each? Where do you think you're going to land?
I think I'll kind of land somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 to 30 on everything. Carrots won't be that much. Arugula won't be that much. But like, yeah, like kale, collards, broccolini will probably be like 30 or 40, just as many as I can take. And but yeah, kind of somewhere in that like 20 to 30 range is where I'm going to shoot for. I'm shooting for like $500 worth of stuff, you know. And obviously we'll be able to have more as I can devote more time to it, but that's sort of the magical number that I've pulled out of my rear end to shoot for.
As you sit here in anticipation outside of the fire of the moment, what would you consider a successful day when you're driving home Saturday? What are the measures that said today was a success?
I would say um definitely that like sell out a salad mix, sell out of carrots, just because like I know I'm not going to have an insane amount of volume. You know what I mean? Like 20, 25 bags of salad mix kind of feels like nothing really compared to, if I'm wanting to shoot that $1,000 market, like, yeah, I'm going to do like 100 bags or 150 bags. And so I would say sell out of the things that I'm really kind of banking on, like the arugula, the salad, carrots, things like that. And, and if the kale, because I know I won't be the only one that has that. And so if I'm not really selling out of that, then that's all good. But yeah, but I would say, you know, if I can get close to that 500 mark and sell out of the like important high profitable things like carrots and salad and the sort of the more specialty greens, then that'll feel like a huge win.
Are there any non-measurables that you think are important? Things like, I don't know, you know, I made a good connection with, a bunch of customers. It felt good just to sell my own stuff under my own name for the first time. Like, even if I sold one bunch, like that was it. It's good to have the first market behind me. Now it's real. Any of that stuff?
Oh yeah. Just like, oh, I did it. Like I feel like since we started in September, everything's been sort of leading up to Saturday. And so just to like say we made it across the finish line of the first leg of the race, more or less. Um, yeah, just which I mean we'll get there. Unless something catastrophic happens, we'll make it through the end of Saturday. Like that'll be a huge win. Um, and I think one thing I'm really hoping to hear will be like, oh, finally, like sort of when people come up to the booth and they see what we have, it's like, oh, we've been wanting a farm like this at the market, like for people that have been coming for years, or it's like, oh yes, there's somebody that had like you have X. I've been wanting to buy that. Like that's for me, not just like, oh, I'm so glad you're here, because that can be just so total BS, like fluffy, glad you're here, so happy to see, but it's like the real thing, like people aren't gonna just say that because they're nice. They're like, oh, I'm so grateful that you're here. So grateful that you're buying this. Like I'm looking forward to buying your stuff in the future. Like that'll be. I'm really hoping that I'll get to hear those comments from folks, or even the occasional, just to prove that the time spent on social media is not in vain. But it's like, oh, we've been following you, and I'm so glad that we're finally getting to buy your stuff after seeing everything that you've been doing. And so I'd say those are two kind of non-measurables that I'm hoping to catch from Saturday.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. I mean, like we've hit on all the information takeaways you can get with your wins. Add anybody goes on the email list or follows you on social, that's a win.
Yeah.
Just even getting your image in a good way into people's minds, like you're here, like, hey, we're not buying this today, but we know you're here, and that can be
Hmm.
BS, but like it's at least you're planting that seed, which I think is all good. What about a month from now or four market cycles out? Leaving the month of April, you'd have a pretty good sample set of sales, a pretty good sample set of market. What do you want to exit April feeling good about or knowing?
Um, I'd say I'd say for me, the main takeaways would be one, that I can handle the production of like 4 weeks in a row. Not just like harvest everything you have, sell it wholesale, and you got a nice check, and then whatever, like I've done in the past. But it's like, oh no, like we consistently were able to bring this much to the market, which will hopefully translate into we've been able to reach sales, this month, or this market every single week. Like, so I'd say that's probably the number one hope, kind of exiting April, is that it's like, oh, we've been able to kind of maintain a level of production, because from this point forward, unless something crazy happens with like a crop failure, like I think nailing that production schedule is just going to get easier. Not necessarily easier, but better, more consistent as it's getting warmer. Things are sort of kind of cycling through faster. I'm going to be able to start devoting more time to it instead of just like trying to squeeze a couple hours here, a couple hours there. I would say that'll be the number one takeaway.
Because
And
that's the
then,
hard part. I
yeah,
think
yeah. If I can't do that, then everything else is kind of in vain.
I mean, I think I could grow for one market.
Yeah.
I couldn't grow consistently and time that. That's, I would say, that's what most farmers are going to tell you. That's where the skill is. That's where the difficulty is, not just in growing, but managing the crop successions, planning, balancing sales with all that. That's hard. Changing seasons, dealing with the weather,
Hmm.
crazy. Like I give you guys a lot of credit for being able to do that. So I would say, yeah, from an outsider's perspective, that'd be a huge win. It's like 4 weeks, we did it. We're at least getting our feel for it, right? Like your feet are on the ground, you're in rhythm, you're not like scrambling or feeling nervous anymore. So that I see that as a big one.
Yeah. And then I'd also say, like, onboarding the other crops that I know will be like wildly successful, or at least I hope they will. Things like the Hackerite turnips, more arugula, things like more radishes. Like I've got some more watermelon and some French breakfast that aren't quite online yet. I've got tatsoi and bok choy that aren't online yet. Got snap peas, and so like there's other things that it's and not that I want to try to grow. I don't want to bring 20 different things to the market, but then maybe I can scale back on, like, well, you don't have to have three types of kale. Like you can just like zero in. I'm like, well, man, people just like the lacinato, so like let's just double down on that and not worry about all the other stuff. But I think that'll be the big hope, is that come the end of the month, the things that I just didn't quite time right they'll be rocking and rolling, and I'll actually be able to have them because I know those things will sell super well.
Yeah, it's probably a nice feeling to know as the season goes on what can be simplified.
Yeah.
What are the things you don't have to do as much anymore, right? Like that's where there's
Hmm.
some huge wins.
Yeah.
Not putting effort into stuff that doesn't move the needle. Do you want to see consistent, like a sales trend or consistent sales going in a direction? If they're flat, if they're choppy. I mean, 4 weeks isn't that long of a sample set. So, say, do you want to go from 5 to 525 to get up to 6 by the end of the month? Or if it was 450, 525, 475, I mean, that's just part of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many variables, whether it's weather or, yeah, I mean, it could be like opening day hype, because I imagine they're like the market right now, like the market manager, she's really pushing opening day. And so, hoping that, yeah, there is that next week will be as good as this week, and the week after will be as good as that week. And yeah, and then there's at least doesn't necessarily have to be like an upward trajectory. I would like that. I would love that. But just seeing that, like, all right, this is not an anomaly. Because, yeah, because if April stays consistent, and then we get into like the meat of market season, which I think will start in May, then yeah, it'll give me a good idea of, can I hit the numbers that I am shooting to hit and hope to hit, and like I think April will be the difference between like doubling down on this market or thinking, do I need to pivot and pick a different one? I'm not putting everything on that, but it'll at least sort of solidify it to where I can really think like, oh no, this market we can do this at this market. Or it's like, maybe I either need to shoot for another one. There's one in Athens on Wednesday. Maybe I tried to supplement with that. Or maybe I just like cut my losses and jump to another more established market. And knowing that I can produce it, knowing that I can sell it, and if we're just at a better market, then it theoretically would just be better. So I think hopefully those things will be solidified by the end of April.
Yeah, that is the other big unknown that we hadn't hit on is, I mean, there's the stuff you control, then there's the stuff beyond your control, the market itself. It could be a banger, it could be a bummer, either way.
Yeah.
And you'll know from foot traffic, from the look of it, you'll get a pretty good sense.
Hmm.
Nerd question. What time's the market open?
9. It's 9 to 1.
So 9 to 1. If it opens at 9, how much time, how early are you getting there to get yourself set up on time?
Setup starts at 7:30. So I'm probably,
That's the earliest you can get there?
yeah, that's like, yeah, sort of gates open at 7:30 to start unloading. What I plan on doing, both just from an aesthetic perspective, but also sort of like a dress rehearsal, is like we're gonna set up the booth, not with all the crops, like we're gonna set up the booth in the driveway Friday afternoon, just to see like, oh, propping the baskets on X to kind of push everything forward and up, like, oh, I thought that was gonna work, but it's just not gonna work. Or it's like, oh wow, for some reason, putting out tablecloths is taking twice as long as I thought it would. And so I'm hoping to kind of do like a dry run dress rehearsal the day before. And just to see, like, does it look good? Like how
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Sarah, does it look good? And she's like, that looks hideous, which, I'm 50-50 on it may go that way. I'll probably just have her help me from the get-go, so then I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, no, I like that. How far is it from your house?
And it's about 40 minutes.
Okay, so there's no running home if you forget something. That's the other thing that it just triggered when you're like, oh, I need something to prop it. Oh, that doesn't work. It's like you don't bring it. You either got to borrow it or
Yeah.
figure out some MacGyver way to make it work.
Yeah, and no one will be home Saturday. So it's not like, hey, babe, I need you to run this up to me. It's like she'll be working, kids will be with my parents. Um, you know, I'm alone out there. I mean, I think I'm gonna have somebody helping me, but I don't expect somebody just helping me volunteering to just be like, hey, can you run, hour and a half round trip to my house to go grab this? And it's like it's in the bin in the garage next to the thing. It's at the bottom. You'll just have to find it. I have to have everything ready to go.
That's smart. That's one thing I definitely would not have thought of doing is setting it up ahead of time. I think it makes a lot of sense. From everything from, like I said, propping it up to attaching signage to the look itself.
Mhm.
And then how do you work within it too is the other thing, right? You set it up. Where am I going to stand? Does this make sense? What's the flow of traffic? All that.
Practice that elevator pitch that I'm going to write down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, I'm excited for you. So 4 days away. Wish you the best of luck, and we'll definitely chat after this happens to see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see.